Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to give it just a few minutes. I have people who are still asking to be admitted, so let me just get through a few of these participants so that there's nobody sitting in the waiting room, and we'll get started at 11:05. Thanks so much, guys. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about sellers today. My name is Jane Stevens, for those of you who don't know me. And again, we're going to be discussing sellers. So what to do during the listing presentation, how to determine the right price, handling objections, of course, talking about commissions, which is often where that objection is going to come up, and then how to market your listing and really position it in the best possible way. And if you are in multiple offers, we'll talk briefly about that. We did do a webinar, I believe just last week, on multiple offers, and we dove right into that topic. So I won't go too depth into it, but we will discuss it a little bit, since it is, definitely something that we're seeing a lot of right now. So let's get started. And just to let you guys know, I'm admitting people as we go, so sometimes that's a little bit distracting. So if I pause, just bear with me. I'm still admitting people as they join the webinar. All right. Okay. Everybody's in. All right, let's do this. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. As I just mentioned, we're going to be covering the CMA, so how to prepare a comparative market analysis. So in other words, pulling up properties that have recently sold, really making sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges, so that you can determine a price for the property that you're going to list, taking that to your listing presentation, being really prepared with a listing presentation. So hopefully you already have one implemented. If not, I'm going to point you in hopefully the right direction to get that set up. And then of course, we're going to talk about marketing the property. So once you do have that listing, you have a signed listing agreement, you're going to go ahead, you're going to upload your listing to Treb. I'm going to talk to you briefly about that, and then how to market your property or your listing. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about offers. As I mentioned before, we will cover briefly multiple offers when you're in that situation, what to do. Really, the takeaway I'm going to tell you right now is disclose, disclose, disclose. So let's jump in, as I said. So let's talk about, first of all, where these sellers come from. So it's not every day that we get a come list me call, right? So somebody just, giving you a call, asking you to come over and give them a listing presentation because they're interested in selling. Most of the time, especially here at Zolo, we are fortunate enough that we do get buyer leads coming into our CRM each and every day. So when we do go out on showings and we're talking to these potential buyers, it's usually during that conversation that they disclose that they also have a property to sell. So what should you ask them if they have a property to sell? Well, first of all, you want to know where it is, where it's located, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, the type of property, basically, right? If you're showing them detached properties, do they have a detached property that they're looking to get rid of, or is this a townhouse or a condo, that they're looking to sell, and are they looking to, upgrade their space? So really finding out the type of property and the number of bedrooms, those sorts of details, but also if they've done any renovations. So have they done anything to improve the property? Because of course, when you go back to your computer, you're going to pull up that address and you're going to see hopefully some pictures from a previous listing, but it won't be relevant if they've done a bunch of renovations, right? If they've gutted the kitchen, if they've redone the bathrooms, if they've added an extension, these are all important things to know. So ask them before even visiting the property if they've done any renovations. Also, a great question to ask is if they have a price point in mind. Now, this is a bit of a tricky question because they'll ask you, for your expert opinion, but really it's a good idea to get some information from them. And another way of asking that same question is maybe asking them if a neighbor of theirs has recently sold and what they thought of that price, right? That's a good way, a really good way to understand what their expectations are going to be. So if they say, yes, our neighbor just sold for $675 and our house is much, much nicer, we've done this, we've done that, then you already know that their expectations are going to be higher than $675, right? So hopefully you can go, through the comparables once you're at your computer, going through Treb or whatever MLS system you have in place, and taking a look and see if that's going to be justified. If they are interviewing multiple agents, oftentimes sellers will go with, the agent that says that they can get them top dollar. You don't want those expectations to be unrealistic, but hopefully you can go in there showing them that, yes, you can achieve hopefully that $700 price range if that's what they're thinking. And yeah, as I said, hopefully it's reasonable. So making sure that if you're up against other agents, if you're in competition, and if you are, maybe asking to meet with them last. And the reason for that is because you can also, if you ask to go last, and if you are in fact last, then one of the nice things that you have the opportunity to ask them during a listing presentation is, was there anything from any previous conversations that you had with listing agents that that you really like that you didn't see in my presentation today. So if they say, oh, well, yes, we did meet with somebody and they were, they were going to do drone photography and, we really wanted to showcase how close we are to the lake, then of course that may not be something that you include in all of your listing presentations, but of course it's something that you can also do. So if they have something like that in mind that you didn't include, then hopefully you can find out about that expectation and then of course include it. So offer to do that as well. All right, so I'm still going to admit some people here. All right, so that's generally the initial conversation. I mean, hopefully you have the opportunity to view the property even before you do pull together a listing presentation, and that's happened sometimes. I've heard of agents going out, showing a property that's for sale. So you're meeting with these potential buyers. Turns out they have a house around the corner. Don't be afraid to go and take a look at the property, even if it hasn't been, it wasn't an appointment that was requested that you've had time to prepare your CMA. Go and take a look and just let them know, now that I've seen your property, I'm going to go back, I'm going to take a look at comparables, and I'll send you a price range suggestion, and maybe I'll come back and share with you my marketing plan. So sometimes it happens in reverse, right? We don't always get the appointment. Sometimes it kind of happens on the spot. So if that's the case, just go with it and let them know, you're not expected to be able to, pull numbers out of the sky, memorize all of the listings that have ever been listed on MLS. So if it is a situation like that where you're with a buyer and they want to show you their house around the corner, go for it, go take a look. It'll actually help you prepare your CMA much, much better because now you've actually seen the property. So definitely go with it and then let them know. You'll have to come back with them with a price range, but have a conversation with them, of course, about their price point and what they have in mind. So regardless of when you go on this listing presentation, whether it's, during that initial conversation or showing that you have with them as buyers, or if it is an appointment that's set, don't forget about the CRM. This is something that you want to be entering in as one of your many activities. So you would go into the client's profile, simply click on update activity, and then there's a meeting button there. And you want to be updating your meetings when you've met with them for the first time, and then also when you have done a listing presentation. So just know that that exists there. This is not a CRM training, so I'm not going to talk about that too much more, just reminding you that that exists, and you should definitely be updating that activity. All right, so let's take a look at the comparative market analysis. So this is going to be really important. This is how you're going to determine what is the right price point for this particular property. And you're going to want to take a look at active listings because you want to know what your competition is. You want to know what has sold, of course, because that's really going to give you a good indication as to what your price should be. But then you also want to be taking a look at terminated listings because you don't want to go outside of that price range and list too high. And usually when you look at terminated listings, you'll notice that maybe they were listed too high and they just didn't sell. So again, it's going to give you a really good idea as to what range you should be in. So obviously we're going to get our comparable analysis by logging into our MLS system. So this is just a screenshot of Treb. I know some of you guys, most of us are on Treb, but I know some of you, are members of different boards as well. So whatever this looks like for you, you definitely want to be going in there and making sure that you are selecting the right type of property, making sure that you're selecting, as I said, available and then also unavailable that were for sale. You don't want to include archive listings because really we only want to be showing them, them being the sellers, your potential sellers, the most recent sold properties. So hopefully what has sold within the last 3 months. All right, so not necessary to include archive listings. Once you select that, obviously you want to select your criteria. So if you are listing a condo, then, if it's just one condo building, then hopefully, you have some comparables in there and you can just pull some recently sold condos from that one building. But sometimes it's a cluster of buildings, right? So it might be 3 or 4 buildings and their addresses are 5220, 5240. So make sure you put in the street number accordingly. So it's 5200 to 5300 to capture those 3 or 4 buildings that are part of the same complex. Obviously putting in the street name, in addition to the area and municipality, of course, but that's really going to be what you set as your criteria. You're obviously not going to put the list price in there because that's what we're trying to figure out. So the last status, you want it to be either sold, or if you are looking at terminated listings, then you can include those as well. And then again, as I said before, really make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So you don't want to just pull up all of the condos that have sold. Of course, you'll be able to see which one is a 1-bedroom, a 1+1, or a 2-bedroom, but just to keep it simple, to keep that list really accurate, go ahead and enter the property characteristics as only 1 bedroom plus 1 if that's what you're going to be listing, right? So again, you don't want to be confusing yourself with looking at 2 bedrooms when you're not going to be listing a 2-bedroom. So selecting your criteria is going to give you a list, and if it is a condo complex, like the example I'm using here, hopefully there's quite a few listings. So I like to go ahead and click on the sold date column. So the header, if you click on that, it basically just organizes it in chronological order. You have to click on it twice for the most recent sold properties to be seen at the very top. And then you can see, in this case, this is a screenshot from a while ago, so it's showing November 2019. So it looks like there were 5 properties that sold in that particular month. And you can kind of take a look at those list prices. It looks like there's a bit of a trend in this building to be listing at $399. And then you can see what they've sort of sold for. So there was one that sold for a little bit more, $408. But there's one that sold for $385, $395. So really going in and taking a look at the pictures so that you can see how it compares, right? Does one have carpet? Does one have hardwood? Those things are going to make a difference in the sold price. So really making sure that if you haven't already seen the property, that you are maybe adding a few more comparables because you're not sure, what the upgrades are in that particular unit, if any. So really making sure that you go through each and every listing that has been recently sold so you know exactly what you're comparing. All right, so those are going to be the results. You want to select the ones that are applicable. So, just going back to this screen here, you can select any which ones that you want to include. This is an example using different properties, but basically you can add that to your listing card. So once you've selected the properties that you want to include in your CMA, you can add it to a listing card. And this is just going to help you in the future so that you don't have to redo that search. If you're kind of picking and choosing properties, you've got everything saved in one place. So this is kind of a nice tool that I don't know if all of us use this, but it is handy for this particular purpose. So it's also handy if you're taking people out to show them properties that are for sale, so buyers, just to keep track of what you've shown them, and you can easily go back and see if it's sold. So use the cart, it's definitely helpful. So in this particular case, you're saving comparable properties to this cart. So you're selecting whatever it is that you want to include. You click on the cart button up at the top, and that's going to take you to this screen, which allows you to create a new listing cart. So click on the create new button, name it with your client's name, and then you should be able to add those listings to the cart. So you also see over here on the left-hand side, if you need to go into your listing cart, this is where you would go. You would click on listing carts, and then you would select your client's name, and whatever properties you selected will be there. So you won't have every single property that's sold in those buildings like you did in that initial search. Now it's just the properties that you want to include in your CMA. So there are a couple of CMAs that are provided to us by TREP. So you can go ahead, click on your listing card, select the listings that you want to include, and then there's a CMA over here on the left-hand side. So go ahead, click on that, and that will take you to a PDF. It will create a PDF for you. So clicking on that CMA link over here on the left will ask you to create a new CMA. So clicking on that plus sign will bring you to something that looks like this. You're going to want to name it, of course, usually with your client's name, address, and then you're going to have to fill in all of this information. So their name, their address, their phone number, all kinds of things. Up here at the top, you see these tabs, and this is basically what you can include and exclude in your CMA. And so just follow the prompts, fill in the blanks, and then as I said, it will pull in where you see comparables up here at the top. It's going to pull in those comparables that you already selected and saved to your listing card. So it does create this for you, but I will say right now that this is going to create a very static PDF. So in other words, you can download it, you can email it, you can print it out, you can bring it to your listing presentation, but it's going to be difficult to look at all of the photos unless you've included a separate page for every listing that you're using as a comparable. If you've also listed out those photos, they're not going to be able to see any other photo other than the profile photo, right? The one that was selected as the main photo. So it's not going to give you a good idea as to why did this one sell for $408 instead of $385, right? So you really want to be going through each listing and being able to show each photo for each listing. So I'll show you a better way of doing this. Here's a this is what this looks like if you just do the PDF CMA. But if you kick it up a notch, there's the top CMA. And so that's also available through Stratus. So I always like to recommend things that are free. So the previous slide that I just showed you, that PDF, that's free. But it's worth the $30 to pay for this top CMA, because what ends up happening is when you click on your listing cart and you pull those comparables from your listing cart into your CMA, if you click top CMA, it's going to take you to a more interactive page, I guess I could say. So you can enter in the address there. It'll bring up the map. You'll be able to enter in the details. But the really nice thing about this is it will pull in the comparables, and your client will be able to, if you send this as a link to them, they'll be able to click through each comparable and look at each and every photo for that particular unit. So it'll give them a good sense as to, okay, well, this one sold for $405. Let me take a look at those pictures. Okay, well, I can see that they updated the kitchen, stainless steel appliances, new light fixtures. So they can take a look and say, okay, well, you know what? My unit doesn't have that. So, maybe it's not going to go for $405. So again, it's really important to be able to show them everything about the comparable property. So this is a really good way to do it. As I said, because it is more interactive, this is what it ends up looking like once it's been prepared. And you can see right here, you can share the report. So you'll be able to send a link to them. But hopefully you send them the link maybe after the presentation, right? You don't want to send them all the information that they need before you even met with them, because maybe they'll just take that and go with somebody else. So knowing that you have this option, but maybe saving it so that you're not sharing it with them until you're actually at the property, and then you can send them that link. You do have the option of downloading the PDF, which again is it's a much nicer PDF than the free version. So I encourage you to download that, take a look at what it looks like. Because I will say in one of these upcoming slides here, it's nice to come to a listing presentation with your listing presentation and your comparables in different formats, right? You don't know who's going to want the formal presentation with your laptop and the slideshow, as opposed to the people who want to just have more of a casual conversation, in which case you might just want to pull out the printed PDF and go through it manually with them. So having it downloaded in different ways is really, really helpful. And this platform does allow you to do that. So check it out, Top CMA in Trev. All right, so what happens after that initial call and before the listing presentation, right? Oftentimes, nothing happens. There's a lot of agents that get to work, they go, they do the comparables, and then they just wait for the meeting. But maybe there's something that we can do between that call and before the listing presentation. And maybe you send them a pre-listing package. And this might be an introduction of who you are. If they really don't know you, maybe they have met you, maybe you did a showing with them. As I said, they contacted you to see some properties to look at as potential buyers. You didn't know at the time that they're also looking to sell. So maybe you send them this pre-listing package. You include your biography. You can do a link to your About Me page on your website if you have one, which really talks about not just you as a professional, but hopefully you as a person as well. Because oftentimes, people select the people that they trust and they like. So maybe you have things in common with them. And, it's nice to include a blurb about yourself on your website. Again, if you don't already have one, then you can just create, maybe some sort of pamphlet, I want to say, but an electronic one that you can email to them so that they get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. You might want to include examples of properties that you've previously sold, maybe testimonials from past clients. Definitely include your marketing plan. So explain what it is that you do to sell homes faster. So if you're brand new to real estate and you haven't sold any properties yet, then explain to them what it is that you are planning on doing. So, letting them know that you're going to hire a professional photographer, that you're going to hold open houses maybe. I know right now that's kind of, up for debate whether we're going to be, allowed to in the future or not. So talking to your clients about that, whether or not they're comfortable with having open houses, how they want to schedule the appointments, and then just really laying out the details of your marketing plans, that they know that you know what you're doing and they know what to expect. Also, maybe having a list of vendors that you work with. So for example, if you go to that listing presentation and, there's a do-it-yourself project that is nowhere near finished, then maybe, you let them know, I have a handyman, I have a painter, I have people that can come in here and they're reasonably priced. I use them all the time. They're reliable. And then you can get those projects done for them so that you are ready to list the property sooner rather than later. maybe giving them a checklist. These are all things that you can find on Google. You can, search for checklists to prepare your home for sale. Lots of ideas will come up. You can make it your own and then add it into this pre-listing package. And the pre-listing package, I say package, but really I mean it's an email probably, right? So between that phone call and that listing presentation, you're sending them an email with just some information explaining the home selling process. So this is definitely going to be part of your listing presentation, but I think I'm going to share with you the roadmap that includes all of the stages when you're selling your home. So even if you have it in your listing presentation, you might want to include that in this email before you actually arrive on that listing presentation. Feel free to include local market data, local city information, but I think the key takeaway here is if you ask them to do a little bit of homework. So in other words, when I arrive at your home on Saturday at 1 p.m., whatever the time is that you've scheduled for the appointment, ask them to have a few things ready, right? Maybe you ask them to fill in the seller disclosure form. Maybe you send that to them. Maybe you ask them to get a copy of the key so that when you show up, you've got that lockbox and they can put that extra key into the lockbox right away. Asking them for copies of their mortgage statements, title paperwork. I mean, if you want to be asking them for that information, definitely asking them to do a couple of things so that when you know then when you show up to that listing presentation, if they have these things ready for you, they really are serious about selling, right? And they're not just curious about home value. So ask them to do a couple of things. It'll give you a good indication when you actually show up to the appointment, how serious they are. All right, so let's talk about this listing presentation. So what do you bring with you? So as I said, you definitely want to be bringing your comparative market analysis. I already mentioned you want to have at least 3 active listings, 3 sold listings, and 3 terminated listings so that you can really give them a good sense as to what's on the market right now, what's our competition, what has sold, so what's our price range that we should probably stay within, and what's been terminated. We can't list this high because we won't sell it, right? So those are going to be your 3 topics and your 3 sort of listing types that you want to bring in with you. And then as I already mentioned as well, you've got your listing presentation, and I do recommend bringing it in several different ways, right? So you might want to have it printed out, go to Staples, ask them to bind it. It looks way more professional than just having it stapled, but a folder will do. If you have a Zolo folder or maybe something that's branded with your logo, then having some kind of a folder where you have your listing presentation in there. You can also prepare a slideshow much like this one, and you can have it on your laptop or your iPad, whatever it is, and really follow their lead. Oftentimes when we show up to a listing presentation, the first thing that happens is they'll give you a tour of their home, and then you usually end up in the kitchen or on the dining room table, and you're having a conversation, and it's usually just follow their lead. If they kind of sit back and they've got their arms crossed, they probably want a formal presentation, at which time you can bring out the laptop and do the whole slideshow situation. But if they're pouring you coffee and they're asking you questions, then it's probably they want to be more hands-on and more interactive, in which case you can pull out the binder and just go through your comparables manually, having more of a casual conversation. So again, following their lead. Of course, you don't want to forget the listing agreement. That's what you're there for. So make sure that you have the listing agreement there, blank or partially filled out, because you guys are going to be talking about the price. So once you've decided that, you can fill that in if that's left blank, and then you can have them sign it. You don't want to be walking away from a listing presentation without a signed listing agreement. If they love you and they want to list with you, then you want to get that signature right then and there. If you're saying great and you go back to your computer and in an hour you're sending them a listing agreement by DocuSign or whatever it is, maybe they've changed their minds. So strike while it's hot, bring the listing agreement. The MLS data information sheet, that is something that you may fill in later and have them sign it after the fact. At least have the listing agreement signed. The MLS data information sheet is a tedious form, to be honest. There's a lot of blanks that need to be filled in. And really you can pull a lot of that information from, any disclosures that they've given you, right? So have that prepared. You can bring it with you, show them what it's going to look like, let them know you're going to fill this in, and once it's all done, you're going to send it to them for signature. The FINTRAC, basically you need to be asking them for ID. We always need to verify that we're speaking to the person they say they are. So, make sure that you've got their, driver's license, you verified their identification. Working with a realtor is another form that needs to be signed. And then last but not least, bringing that lockbox with you to the listing presentation is kind of a power move. It kind of shows that you're confident that you're going to get this listing. And if you did send them that email asking them for an extra key, you can let them know, perfect, let's sign this listing agreement. I'm going to put the lockbox on your front door. I'm going to put in this extra key that you prepared for me. Thanks so much. And while you guys are away for the weekend, I'm going to have the photographers come in, maybe even the stager come in, whatever the situation is in that for that particular listing. So it's all going to be done like magic, and it's not going to be a hassle for them. So there you go, offering to put the lockbox on immediately. It also saves you a trip, so you don't have to go back. All right, so definitely bringing that with you. This is the example of a listing presentation template. So again, if you're brand new to real estate, if you haven't done a listing presentation before, you don't have one, Breakthrough Broker is something that I always recommend, and I'll type it into the chat box here because Breakthrough Broker offers basically a whole bunch of templates, including listing presentations, buyer packages, and they are templates that you can easily customize. All you need to do is upload your picture, you can add your phone number, your email address, definitely putting in the our logo so that they know who you're with. And yeah, just preparing the listing presentation, and a lot of it is auto-populated for you. And of course, you can tweak that as you like, but it talks about quite a few things about, you know, not wanting to overprice your property. So there's a bunch of pages in there that you can kind of include or exclude. And this is the presentation that you would bring with you, both in electronic format and printed format on that listing presentation. So I'm just going to type this in, breakthroughbroker.com. And as I said, they have a bunch of templates. They even have postcards. So if you do get the listing and you want to send postcards out to the whole neighborhood saying coming soon with a photo of your listing, then you know you can even download that from there. So we do have Hamid as well, who's amazing. He's our in-house designer, Sidekicks Media. So he's actually joining me on Thursday, and he'll be talking to you guys about social media. But he does all of this if you want to customize something. But this is free and it's available to you as well. We also have some booklets that we used to have pre-printed. They are available for you in the CRM. So if you go into your CRM, there's the toolbar up at the top, and then there's tools. If you click on that, there's a drop-down menu, and then there's the buyer presentation and the seller presentation. So feel free to take a look at that and include some of those details, whichever ones you'd like, include that into your listing presentation. Just keep in mind, this is outdated. So, you know, this was prepared quite a while ago. I believe we're at 11 million visitors each month to Zolo. So that's definitely something you want to be including in your presentation. Something else you want to be including is, or maybe showing to them, is your reverse buyer search. So every single agent that's going to show up to a listing presentation is going to promise that they have buyers. And that may or may not be true. More often than not, what they're talking about is, I'm going to list your place, your property on MLS, and I hope that the buyers contact me. That's usually the reality of things. But you can prove that you actually do have buyers, and you can do so by using the reverse search button. So again, going up to your toolbar, there's the tools drop-down menu, and selecting reverse search will pop up this other dialog box that you see here at the front. Find a buyer, reverse search. And maybe there's a property, hopefully there's a property next door, down the street from the listing that you're trying to get. And you can plug in that MLS number, and it will literally give you a list of everybody who's registered to Zolo who has looked at that property next door or down the street. Right? And you can even explain how you are able to access this list of buyers. You can call them. You can ask them if they were interested in the property next door because you have a listing coming up that's very similar just down the street. So definitely use the Find Buyer button and showcase that to your potential sellers, letting them know that you do in fact have buyers. All right, so use that tool to your advantage. Also talk about Zolo and the website. Again, talk to them about the fact that we have 11 million visitors every month. And if you list with Zolo, your property is featured on the website. So if their property is in Toronto and anybody in the world types Toronto in that search field, the very first properties that are going to come up aren't the most expensive or the least expensive. It's the recommended properties. And the recommended properties, according to Zolo, are going to be Zolo listings. So another great feature to showcase during a listing presentation. All right, so Commission, that's always going to come up. There's lots of scripts that you can download and pick one that, you know, works for you, resonates with you. But definitely during the course of your conversation, you are going to be asked what commission you charge. So go for the 5%. That's, you know, typically know your area. Typically it's going to be 5%, 2.5% for the buyer's agent, and 2.5 for you as the listing agent. Of course, if they're going to be buying with you as well, then maybe there's some room to negotiate, but just know that here at Zolo, we don't allow anything less than 1%, but there's a big number between 1% and 2.5. So if you are being asked to reduce your commission, again, if they're buying something with you, then sure, maybe you negotiate, you know, 2% or 1.5. You know, don't go all the way to 1% right away. There are, as I said, lots of numbers in between 1.5 and 2.5 that you can negotiate. So, and then just download a script for you that resonates with you so that you can explain your value, what you're bringing to the table, and why it is that you're charging the full 2.5% if that's what you're going to stick to. So just really being prepared to handle this objection, because it does come up really probably all the time in a listing presentation. They're going to want to know what your commission is, and they're going to want to know if you're going to reduce it at all. So know where you stand on that and be firm. All right, so once you have handled that and they've signed the listing agreement, that's always very exciting. We do have to go back into our TREB system, and we upload our own listings here at Zolo. So just know that. So if you have your listing agreement signed, there is you will be uploading it yourself. So I think I have some screenshots coming up here of that. But once everything's been uploaded, or there's some stuff that's going to happen before you upload it into MLS, and that's going to be the marketing, such as the photos. So let's talk about that. Maybe having photos like this that you share in your listing presentation to really encourage the seller to consider staging the property. So this is the same property. The very first photo that you see on the left-hand side, you can see that the projector is scrolled down. The projector is kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but it's propped up on a popcorn box. This was very much a bachelor pad. And a stager came in, and really all she did was add a little bit of art. She hid the cables and the cords, you know, with some baskets and whatnot. And she opened the blinds, made it look nice and bright and airy. And what a transformation between the two photos. So definitely it helps showcase your property in the best possible way. And yeah, definitely something to recommend if it's not already, you know, showcase ready. So definitely recommending staging, and then recommending professional photos. So the first photo on the left was taken by the realtor, and the photo on the right hand side, you can obviously see that, you know, there's some different lighting that's been used there, and that's you know, thanks to the professional photographer who was brought in. So, you know, staging is a bit of a negotiation that you may want to do with your clients. Are they going to pay for it? Are you going to offer some of it? I know we have some realtors here at Zolo who also offer interior design because they themselves do it. They have extra furniture that they bring in, extra pieces and that sort of thing. But if that's not something that you do, then, you know, maybe encouraging your sellers to take that on. But definitely always, you know, taking the photos, that's going to be an expense when you take on a listing. So talking about that as well. Marketing materials. So again, we have Hamid joining us on Thursday. If you want the Zolo open house sign, for sale sign, all of that, he can help you. He can do that for you. But of course, if you have your own logo that you've already designed, or maybe not, he can even help you design it. Have your marketing materials together. And this might, again, be something that you share in your listing presentation. Maybe they want to know what that sign is going to look like if you're putting it on their front lawn. So, you know, make sure that you're showcasing, you know, everything kind of really unified in your marketing plan. So, you know, matching the for sale sign, maybe you have feature sheets and it's not just the MLS sheet printed off of TREB or whatever MLS system you're using. Maybe you have a feature sheet that will not only include the MLS information sheet, but has, you know, the photos, your logo, your photo, all of that. So really showcasing what it is that you're going to be offering at the open house if you have any, or, you know, on the table. I'm sure you guys have all been, you know, showing properties to buyers, and some listing agents will have kind of a little table set up with information sheets with, you know, kind of a highlight sheet or a highlight reel, if you will, of what's been updated, when it was updated, really thinking about all the questions that a buyer would want answered and providing that to them. So, I mean, now we're even seeing these little tables where you've got all this information, you've got the hand sanitizer, you've got the gloves, you've got the masks. So definitely let your sellers know what it is that you're going to be providing and how it's going to be showcased in their home. All right, so this is an example of some marketing materials that actually Hamid prepared. So these are some Zolo agents who have done this with either a coming soon listing or a just sold listing, or in some cases just even promo for themselves. So again, reach out to Hamid if this is something that you're looking to do. But if it is something that you do, this is an example of a just sold postcard. But if you have something like a coming soon postcard, or maybe you have a program where you're introducing or you're door knocking the neighborhood and you're asking neighbors if they know of anybody who might be interested in your listing that's coming up soon, that's obviously part of your marketing plan and something that you would showcase in your listing presentation. So if you have postcards that you've already prepared, or even templates that have been designed, then you can include that in your marketing material. And this is just an example of one, and this is an example of a just sold property. This one being actually just an example of a postcard promoting yourself, not so much, a property for sale coming soon or just sold. So definitely lots of different postcards that you can create. But if you do have coming soon and just sold postcards that you do for all of your listings, then let your sellers know that so they know what to expect. All right. Open houses, of course, like I said at the beginning, open houses are kind of a debate right now. Ask your sellers if they're comfortable with that, right? And they may not be. And if they're not, that's fine. But if they are, then maybe you can talk to them about your safety protocol, how maybe you're just going to allow people to come in one at a time. Maybe there's a COVID questionnaire that you have them complete. And then this was an example of a traditional questionnaire that we would ask just for everybody to sign in, so we know who's coming in, we know who they are they working with a realtor, and then what are their real estate needs. This helps because, of course, open houses are a great source of leads. So if they do come into the property and they're not working with a realtor, but they're kind of thinking about buying something soon, then hopefully that's a new buyer for you. But talk to your sellers about whether or not they want to do open houses, and if they do, having some kind of a system in place now with that COVID questionnaire and something of a sign-in sheet like this one here. All right, so once you do have that listing agreement signed, I talked about this at the beginning, it's the listing presentation. Once you have that signed, you do want to go into your CRM and go into client profile, update contact, and then now we go into the agreement. Verify that yes, we have a listing agreement signed, and it must be signed before you go into Treb and upload that listing. So usually you're waiting to upload that listing onto Treb after you've done all of the photos, because now you're ready to upload those as well with your listing. So let's talk about that. Uploading your listing into Treb, fairly easy, but a question that we get all the time. So making sure that you are logged in. If you are using Treb, I'm just going to show you where to go. It's the Add Edit button over here. So you've got that menu bar off to the left-hand side. And if you are uploading a listing, click on Add Edit, and that will take you to this page here. So are you adding a listing? Are you editing a listing? Are you cloning a listing? So in other words, maybe this was listed before, maybe by yourself, maybe by another agent, maybe they decided to take it off the market for a bit and now they're coming back on. So in that case, you can clone the listing, which is nice because you can take that old MLS listing, plug it in, and it copies a whole bunch of information from that previous listing into your new one. But typically, I'm going to say you're probably adding a new listing. So just make sure that you're adding, the property class correctly. So is it a freehold or is it a condo? And then, of course, let the system know if it's for sale or for lease. So selecting those, and then that's where you're going to go ahead and enter in all of the information from the MLS data information sheet. So this screen here is just showing you if you do clone the listing, this is where you would go to enter in the MLS number. It automatically comes up when you click on clone listing. So you'd be taking the MLS number from the old listing and it would just copy type everything over. But typically you're going to have to fill in the forms, the listing agreement, the MLS data information sheet, and really copy type everything into that new listing. So a quick note about that listing agreement. Up at the top, you have a couple of circles. So the very first one says this is a multiple listing service agreement. So this is an MLS agreement, or it's an exclusive listing agreement. So you can actually have both of these initialed. And if you do have both of them initialed, please put the dates underneath each circle or each title there to determine when you're going to have it as an exclusive listing and when it's going to hit the MLS system. So it may be that you go into this listing presentation, they like what you're saying, they're going to choose you as their agent, they sign it, but there's going to be a week or two where they need to, just finish those do-it-yourself projects, finish the painting in the second bedroom, they're just doing a few touch-ups, then maybe you have it signed as an exclusive listing for 2 weeks. That will allow you to promote the listing to maybe buyers that you've worked with before that might be interested in this property. Maybe you're gonna post it on Facebook or Kijiji. Maybe you're gonna reach out to other agents in your area, letting them know that you have this coming soon listing. So that allows you to do that. So it would be an exclusive listing for 2 weeks, and then you're ready to hit the MLS system in 2 weeks from now. So then just under that circle, just say as of whatever date that's going to be, October 15th or whatever date. So that it's clearly stated there, you are authorized to promote the listing before it hits MLS, and then you're authorized to post it on MLS as of whatever date you guys decide. So just a quick note about that. And then this is the MLS data information form. So this is really the pink fields that you see here. Those are mandatory fields, and there's a lot of them. So really, go through this in detail, make sure all of the information is correct. And then this is what you're going to be copy typing when you upload your listing to Treb. All right. So anything that needs to be changed, you can't just do that unilaterally. You must get signatures from your seller if you are going to change the price, if you are going to extend the expiry date on the listing. You have to have authorization first. Just because you have access to upload your listings, so adding a new listing and editing a current listing, doesn't mean that you can just go in there and change the price. Maybe you did have a conversation with the seller and you agreed, but you still need to have this form prepared. So it's the amendment to listing agreement. If you're changing the price, please make sure that you have this in place. You will need to submit it to the deals department when the time comes. So definitely making sure you have all your paperwork in order. So let's talk about offers. Once you have your listing live, hopefully you start getting showing requests. And I don't know actually if I have this in here or not, but showing requests right now are scheduled through Schedule Lock. So once you do upload your listing through Treb, you're going to get an email from Schedule Lock asking for instructions. So just follow the links and fill in the information. It's going to ask you, are appointments allowed anytime, or are there time restrictions? Can they be auto-confirmed? Do we need to ask the seller or the tenant if the property is tenanted? So really providing instructions, being clear as to where that lockbox is, what the code is. So, really making sure that you have all the information provided in Schedule Lock, because that's going to help the call center book those appointments and confirm those appointments for you. All right, so as I said, once you've had several showings, hopefully you start getting offers coming in. So let's talk about what to look at when an offer comes in. So if you've prepared offers already on behalf of buyers, you'll be familiar with this. So if you're representing sellers, it's just a little bit different, because you're going to be looking at the price, the closing date, the conditions, what's included and what's excluded. Really make sure you're going through this with your seller. And then of course they have options. They can either accept the offer, they can reject the offer, they might not even reply to it if it's really, really low, or they might counter it, right? They might counter it back, and that's where the negotiation starts back and forth. So there are a few options there for them. That's saying that you have one offer, but of course, as I said before, if you do have multiple offers coming in, then you want to make sure that you are disclosing. So counter offers, let's start with that. So take a good look at what the buyer is asking for, and then, talk to the sellers. Hopefully it's not an unreasonable request. Sometimes, every situation is different. So if you're not sure what to do in a particular negotiation, then reach out to your growth manager, ask them what the right thing might be to do, or maybe even come up with an idea that's maybe slightly out of the box. For example, I had a situation once where there was a buyer who wanted to put in the conditional on the sale of their home, which of course, as you all know, is really difficult to get accepted, but they were willing to provide a non-refundable deposit, right? Which made it attractive to the seller that, regardless of what happened, there was a non-refundable deposit of $10,000. So, sometimes you can think outside of the box in negotiating offers. So there's so many situations. Reach out to your growth manager and come up with some solutions to get your offer accepted, or maybe, being in the position as a listing agent, coming up with those ideas if that's maybe the only offer that you have coming in. In the situation where you have multiple offers, then make sure that you really compare everything. Maybe have a simple sort of spreadsheet that you can prepare so you have the not just the agent's name and phone number, but what it is that the buyers are offering. So what is the price? What are the conditions? What is the closing date? So really making sure that you're presenting it properly. So and in an organized way. Sometimes multiple offers might get thrown at you. It's not always expected. I know I've heard of situations here at Zolo where you haven't delayed offers, so you're not expecting to receive 3 or 5 or 10 offers on Tuesday. Instead, you list it and you get an offer and you're about to go present it to the seller, and then you have another offer come in, right? Don't let that scare you. Just really stay on top of it. Disclose really to everybody involved that there are 2 offers, 3 offers, whatever the situation is. And our system actually does a good job of helping us out with that. So the schedule lock will inform buyers of multiple offers if there are any. All right, so multiple offers, just really staying on top of it, organized so that you can present it properly to the sellers. And then of course, disclosing. All right, I think I kind of sped through that actually. Let me know if you guys have questions. Let me know if you have any listings that are coming up or a listing presentation that you have coming up that maybe you're wanting to talk about. You have the ability, of course, to turn on or off your mic if you have a situation that you want to, again, chat with me about. Otherwise, your growth managers are always there. They're always available to you. So if you do have a situation that you're not sure how to navigate, they're there for guidance. So let me know if you guys have any questions. If not, as I said, we do have Hamid joining us on Thursday, and he's going to talk to us about social media. So that's another great platform to have in place so that when you do have listings, you can promote it there. Awesome. All right, well, I guess I'll leave you with that. If you do have questions, feel free to chat with me afterwards, jane.stevens@zolo.ca. And of course, the workplace group is also available as an option. Awesome, guys. All right, well, have a great day and good luck. We'll see you on the next webinar. Bye.